much requested video on my OSCP methodology, and this one I'm going to be focusing in on my methodology for Active Directory, and I'm going to disclose as much as I can. I mean, bear with me a little bit because obviously there's certain things that I'm not allowed to disclose as part of OffSec's rules, right? And yeah, this one I think is going to be really helpful if you are, no matter where you are really along your learning journey. But I wanted to share with you, first of all, this mind map here. And let me just make the disclaimer of saying that I did not use this mind map on the exam or even in the labs, but I want to share it with you because I think a lot of people will really like this resource. So let me zoom way out. You can see just how massive this thing is. It definitely covers a lot more than you would need to know for OSCP Active Directory. Like, it has some pretty advanced and, cutting edge things here. Like, it will tell you as well how to exploit weak ADCS and stuff like that in this section right here. And so, yeah, it's really massive. And I think for those of you that like this kind of stuff, this could be a very good resource for you to use. Now, while I have this on the screen, I want to kind of talk you through my methodology that I was able to use to successfully get the 40 points, because I did get the Active Directory set on the exam. Now, what I like to start with is SMB usually, because I look for things that are low-hanging fruit first, the quickest things that I can check and try to get those quick wins first. If I don't get any hits on that, then I start to go more and more into like the finer grained things that are going to take longer to look for. So I always like to start with a null session, SMB null session, and I usually personally prefer CrackMap exec to do that. And I can make some videos showing these individual techniques if you want me to. Just let me know in the comments section what technique you want me to showcase, like in a video or something like that, and I can definitely make that video. But I wanted to cover a very broad perspective of my methodology. So yeah, usually CrackMap exec, checking for null session, so empty username, empty password, and also a guest account, so username guest with no password, basically. And if I could get access to that, then chances are you'll have read access to like the IPC share, and then you can do an RID brute force attack and you can dump all the users. And once you have all the users, then maybe you can look for something like ASREP roasting. So I use in packet, get MP users and see if there's any accounts that do not require pre-auth set. If they do, then try to crack their password with Hashcat. Just looking through here, you can see some other things that I'll get to in just a minute. What I like about Active Directory is that the scope of what you're looking for is a lot smaller than, say, like web apps, which could be like an infinite number of possibilities for like where a vulnerability might be, right? With Active Directory, especially before you get your first set of credentials, there's not too many things, unless there's a web app running, and that might be a whole nother story, right? But for the most part, there's not that many ways that it could be vulnerable, ways to get in. So it's really nice from an attacker's perspective because it's a lot more narrow. You know what to focus on. So if you don't have credentials, I'm looking for things like potential usernames. Do I find, like, if there's a website, do they disclose the names of employees that work there? And maybe I can guess how they're named within Active Directory. Is it first name dot last name, first name underscore last name? Is it first initial dot last name? Something like that, right? And there's tools that will generate word lists for that. And then you do something like a curbrute to see which users exist. But in general, the things that I'm looking for before I get that first set of credentials are, valid usernames, and then, ASREP roasting. I'll also start to enumerate stuff like LDAP and MSRPC. So using RPC client, I'll look through and see, like maybe do query disp info and see if I can find sensitive information in, say, the description field of the users, right? So those are different things that I might look for, and there's a bunch of other things you can look for on MSRPC, and as well with LDAP search, you can, or whatever tool you prefer, you can start to enumerate LDAP and look for, nice goodies in there, and you can see the LDAP search command that they would use right here, and this is the one that I would use if I was using LDAP search. If I have I mean, regardless, I'm going to run enum for Linux, especially if I have like null session authentication, which is, empty username, empty password, or guest, empty password. And then enum for Linux can be very good. You can get a lot of information on the domain, password policies, all kinds of stuff. So enum for Linux NG is the one I would prefer. Here they have enum for Linux. It's a very old and outdated script written in Perl several years ago. There's a newer, better version called enum for Linux-NG. I would recommend to use that one instead. It's essentially the exact same tool, but ported to Python. And yeah, here's some RPC stuff they're looking up. And on the OSCP, you're not allowed to do any kind of poisoning, so you automatically don't have to worry about any of this LLMNR and BTNS or any of that stuff, because you're explicitly not allowed to use these poisoning attacks on both on the OSCP labs and on the exam. If you want to get practice using Responder and doing some of these poisoning attacks, there's some hack the box machines that involve that. So that's what I would recommend there. And so, yeah, I mean, if you do have access on any of these accounts, see, this is what I was talking about here, exactly. The empty username, empty password for the null session, also username guest, empty password. And, most likely you'll just have read access to IPC to get the users, but hey, maybe you have access to some other share, then you want to enumerate that. If I have access to some non-standard share, like a custom share, what I prefer to do is use crackmap exec, and I'll show you the exact command that would run in that case. So I would do something like crackmap exec SMB, and let's just say this is the IP address. And then let's say it was user guest and blank password. And let's say the share was, well, it doesn't matter, right? We do tac shares. I would do tacm spider _ plus. You actually might not need, I don't think you need tac shares. Should be able to run it like this. The spider plus module, super handy. What it's going to do is it's going to go through all the shares that you have read access on, and it's going to parse the tree. So it's going to log all of the folders and files that you have access to, and it's going to save it to a JSON file. And then you can simply parse that JSON file using JQ. And here, 1 second, bear with me here. I can tell you the exact command in JQ that I would use as well to then parse that. So let's look that up real quick. JQ. I always forget it. I have it in my notes. So it's going to save the file to your temp directory after you run the spider plus. So it would look something like this: cat/temp cme _ spider plus / the IP.json. That would be the name of the file. And then you can pipe that into JQ and say map values keys. And this will give you a really nice output. Oh, sorry, missing the closing single quote here. But this will give you a nice JSON output of the entire tree of everything you have access to. And then you kind of scan through that and see what looks juicy, right? And then once you have access to that, you will go ahead and connect with SMB client and grab the file and things like that. So that is what I would go about for the very beginning. Once you get the first set of credentials is when you really, it opens up a lot of opportunities. Now, one thing I will say as well is, both for real world pen testing of Active Directory and for the OSCP, is do not make the mistake, because I made this mistake in the very beginning. Do not restrict yourself to only looking at the client machines in the beginning. Enumerate the domain as well early on. Enumerate all of the boxes, not just because obviously you know that your goal is to get domain admin, but the order that you have to exploit the machines might not be linear. So it's a little bit different. It's not necessarily that I'm going to exploit this client and get full access on it and then move to this other one and get full access on it. This is an Active Directory set. So you should be enumerating every single box in the beginning, including the DC, the domain controller. Because there might be certain information, especially if you're doing LDAP search and stuff like that, you have to do that against the domain controller. So just keep that in mind. Do not assume that just because it's the domain controller that you shouldn't even look at it until the very last step or something like that. You want to enumerate all of the machines, even from the very beginning. So keep that in mind. And in general, a lot of the stuff with Active Directory is, the way these boxes are tied together, just in general, like in the real world perspective as well, is that you might exploit a client on the domain, a domain joined computer, and you might find like a privilege escalation vulnerability on there, and you get admin, but it's not domain admin, it's local administrator. Keep in mind there's a difference between domain admin and local admin, a domain account and a local account, right? So you get local administrator, and because of that level of access, you're able to dump LSAS using Mimikatz. So you can upload Mimikatz, and you don't have to worry about AV on OSCP. There's no antivirus, it's all disabled, so you don't have to bypass anything. You can just easily just drop Mimikatz onto disk and run it, and that's going to allow you to dump all of the cache credentials. So for example, if someone logged on to the box that you have a local administrator on, then there's a good chance that you can just dump LSAS and get their password hash from memory. And then that is a way you could pivot to then that domain account. And then I would immediately, as soon as I get access to a new account, I would check like, hey, what does this have access to? Does this maybe have access to another server or something like that? And that will allow you to then pivot. And as soon as you get the first set of credentials, like I was saying, there's so much more you can do. I mean, if we look over here and we scroll over, it already gives you a number of things. I mean, this is when you just get usernames, not even before you get credentials, right? Password spray attack. Maybe when you enumerate the description, you see like, hey, this is the default password. Okay, awesome. If you have a list of all the users, or at least some of the users, password spray that and see if you get a hit on any of that. But once you get your initial set of credentials, then what you want to look for is, got account on the domain. You want to look for Kerberoasting. You want to run Bloodhound as well. So with the exam, I would say don't worry about running the manual power view commands. They show you how to do that in the course, which is really good knowledge, good information. And especially if you're like in a red team engagement or something like that, where you don't want to generate a ton of noise, you might do something like that. But I would say definitely you want to just use one of these collectors like Python Bloodhound or Sharphound and just collect everything you need, dump it into Bloodhound, and start enumerating from there. And that's going to give you so much intel on the users and what groups they're in and potential misconfigurations you can find in the ACLs. And yeah, so these are the things I would be looking for. Kerberoasting, looking through for vulnerable ACLs. And then I wouldn't worry about ADCS personally on OSCP at least. Now, look, I'm not saying that you're not going to come across it. I don't want to speak for what your exam set might potentially be, but I would think that would probably be out of scope for the OSCP, given that it is a more beginner-friendly exam in terms of the material. I'm not saying it's easy, but in terms of the material, it would probably be out of scope, I would think. But don't quote me on that. So, yeah, these are the kind of things I'd be looking for. Lateral movement, obviously, would be a really huge one as well. And then, here's for the local administrator access. Like I was saying, extracting credentials from LSA, LSAS, and stuff like that, or from the SAM. So, yeah, there's a bunch of different Mimikatz stuff you can do. I mean, if you do it through Impake, you'd use secret stump. But yeah, this could be handy for you to look at the individual command, like the specific commands to run, for sure. And then, yeah, you could try to pass the hash. Once you get those hashes, you could either pass the hash or try to crack it. I would always say it's worthwhile to try and crack it offline using Hashcat. But if you're not able to, there's still a lot of stuff you can do through pass the hash. And yeah, see, try those credentials everywhere. You get one set of credentials, you try them everywhere, especially because we're not worried about stealth on this exam. Try it everywhere and see what you have access to. And now that will start the enumeration process all over again. Let's say that gets you access into another server. Now you can look at what's on that server, what's running, are there any users logged into that, etc. Right? When you're looking through your Bloodhound data, see are there any user accounts that are domain admin? If there are, then keep that in mind. That's an account that you're going to want to look for when you pivot to these other boxes. Is that user on that box? Maybe you can get privilege escalation on that box and then dump their credentials. Or maybe you can find their credentials in plain text in a configuration file, or, there's a lot of possibilities here, but those are some of the things that I would look for and how I would go about doing it. So I know I just kind of mentioned like Kerberoasting and things like that. You can use this Mindmap to see like what specific commands you would run in order to do that. I mean, you could find that in several places on the internet for sure. But I want to give you more of like that higher level overview. Overpass the hash, that's something that you might want to look into as well. That's something you can definitely do depending on the situation here for some lateral movement. Let's see what else. Let me just make sure I'm not forgetting anything here. Because yeah, there is a lot that you could do obviously with Active Directory. What I like about it is that in the very beginning, they show you how to crack hashes too, like what commands you can use and things like that. You don't have to worry about any of man-in-the-middle attacks. Like I said on OSCP, it's actually prohibited. But that being said, Active Directory, what I like about it is that it is very straightforward in the beginning. But then as you get credentials, it gets a little bit more complex, but that's fine because Bloodhound is such a lifesaver. It can help you identify these things here. And every time you get credentials, start enumerating all the boxes in the Active Directory set all over again with those credentials to see, okay, can I access a new resource that I didn't have access to before? So try it everywhere. And yeah, you don't really have to worry about persistence or anything like that on this exam. The objective is purely just get domain admin. So a lot of this stuff here you can ignore. So even though this is a massive, massive cheat sheet or whatever, and it would definitely be handy in a real engagement, a lot of this stuff you don't have to worry about, which simplifies the process a lot. And so those are some of the things that I highlighted in this video. So as you're learning this stuff and leveling up in Active Directory, if you want to accelerate that even faster, I'm super happy to announce that as of today, I have an Active Directory course that just launched. And so for the next few days, you can get it. I'll put the link to it in the description below as well. And it's a 6-week course. We're going to be covering Active Directory pen testing, and I'm going to be showing you all the common misconfigurations and how to do this stuff. You want to learn more about the methodology, that would be the perfect place to learn it. Whether you have the aspirations of getting OSCP or you're just trying to level up on your journey to become a pen tester or even get a higher paying job, become a red teamer. There's so many, no matter where you're at, beginner, absolute beginner or intermediate, there is a lot of value that you can gain from this course. Let me just pull it up for you guys really quick. It is the Active Directory Pen Testing Workshop, and I cover what's included here. You can take a look at this in the description below. But yeah, we're covering all the most common vulnerabilities. I'll even show you guys how to build out an Active Directory domain environment. And I'll give you a pre-built lab that you can work through that will already have a bunch of vulnerabilities that you can try and find within it. So it'll be super valuable, and hands-on is the part that will be amazing about it. There'll be a guided aspect and unguided. So if you guys want a little bit extra challenge as well, this course will provide that to you. And of course, you get access to the mastermind chat for a lifetime. So even after the course ends, you can always ask your questions there. That's where I hang out the most. I need to overhaul my Discord. That's part of the reason why I spend so much time in the mastermind chat, but definitely on my list to update the Discord as well. But it will have a number of bonuses as well that will be really handy for you guys. So one of the most common questions I get is on certifications and which one should you pursue. And I want to do a live call for that because I could just make a video on it and give you some cookie cutter answer, but it really depends on, what are your goals? Where are you currently at? What is your experience? And that will really dictate what is the best cert to go for you. And by the time you watch the YouTube video, it's probably out of date already anyways, because certs are constantly changing. So I wanted to be able to provide this in a live format for you guys. You get this included as part of picking up the Active Directory Pen Test Workshop. And also a nice little checklist, something similar to this, but a scaled down version, a less intimidating version. So you can make sure that you cover all your bases. And if you are a beginner, well, I have a nice beginner friendly dictionary for you where you can, if I happen to throw out a term you don't understand, you can use it as a quick and handy reference. So you're going to be getting all of these things: 6 weeks of live coaching, vulnerable Active Directory cyber range, lifetime access to the mastermind chat, and all those bonuses that I just mentioned. Not for $5,000, but for only $697, because I want to make this, accessible to as many people as possible. But at the same time, it is a live course, so I have to charge more than a Udemy course or something like that, because it is like 100% live for me, and it's a lot of time. It's 12 webinars, 2 hours each, so you're getting 24 hours of live content. So as much as I would like to make it even cheaper for you guys to be able to access, I have to value my time at a certain level, also to be fair to people in the year pass and things like that. And so I'll also give you the satisfaction guarantee, 100%. If you're not satisfied with the service, well, no harm, no foul. You can get 100% refund on it. I'm that confident that this is going to be very valuable on your learning journey. So definitely check this out, and let me know if you have any questions or anything like that down in the comments section below. And I hope to see you guys all there. I'll see you right over in some technical content if you want to get into some more videos. Thanks for watching.